playing another Total War Warhammer campaign lore play. So, yeah, just finishing off these rebels here, choosing what to do with them. And basically I chose to execute them, because I decided if there's a wizard involved, then clearly he's gone heretic. And so those are a bunch of cultists in my mind, because why else would a wizard go against the Empire, right? So, yep, they're getting executed. So, you know, important to know. Now, I actually want to take some time in this episode actually to talk about some of the other units that I hadn't talked about earlier, because we didn't talk about sort of Free Company or Flagellants, and yeah, a few other bits and bobs here and there. So I'm going to begin by talking about that. But first off, I just want to thank everyone for, you know, just allowing me that grace of a week, because, you know, it's been a week since I put an episode up, had a bit of a break, and yeah, reinvigorated, and I'm ready to get loads more content done. So, yeah. So thanks for sticking with me. So, yeah, let's carry on! So, if you've been paying attention to the, you know, sort of episodes X.5, obviously I've been talking about religion a lot, and Flagellants play a big part of that, but I kind of wanted to cover it in the campaign bit, because it's sort of, you know, it's more of their military than sort of this other stuff going on in the background. So, so I'm going to take the time to talk about it now. So, this is actually, I'm reading from, I think this is a 4th or 5th edition Empire battle book, because I prefer how they describe Flagellants to the other stuff I've got, so I'm going to go with that. So, the Old World is a dangerous and often cruel place, where war, plague, and the vagaries of nature can destroy whole towns and force their inhabitants to become beggars, vagabonds, and brigands. It is probably no wonder that many are driven mad by the terrible hardships that they suffer. Many see their condition as a sign that the realms of men are about to collapse, that they are living in the last days of a dying world. It's quite often common for these hordes of penniless zealots to band together under the leadership of some ranting madman, a preacher of apocalyptic doom. These bands travel the towns and cities of the Old World, spreading their nightmarish vision of doom and despondency. When they hear there is a battle brewing, Flagellants gather together in anticipation of the final apocalyptic conflict. As the armies clash, the Flagellants throw themselves into the fray in a gesture of sacrifice and doom. So I think that's pretty fun. Pretty fun. So what's quite cool is there's a little extra bit here which plays into their rules a bit. They're not affected by psychology. Obviously in this they're just unbreakable. So here it actually says thanks to their constant hardships, many self-inflicted, Flagellants feel almost no pain and are difficult to kill. They are also completely fearless, having long since confronted their own vision of world destruction. Nothing holds any terror for them any longer. Which I just think is so cool, because, yeah, they're absolutely batshit crazy. Actually, in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, 3rd edition, certainly, I'm not sure about the other editions, but in 3rd, you can't actually be a Flagellant, you can't pick it as a career, unless you're insane. You have to pick up an insanity before you're allowed to be that career, which I just think is just hilarious. The idea that you can't be one unless you're mad is, you know, it's really great, and, you know, it really suits. It really suits the world and, you know, these units, just crazy, you know, sort of, well, cultists, but the good kind of cultists, I guess. Though they're still mad, so maybe not that good, but anyway, I like them. They add a lot of flavour to the world. So now, switching to, I think it's a 6th edition rulebook for the Empire, we can talk about free companies. So, a further source of irregular troops are the bands of footloose young men and would-be adventurers who would wander off to seek their fortunes in such places as the Border Princes or the Wasteland. The most successful of these fighters may even end up as nobles in some distant land. Others become brigands or pirates, most are never seen again, but a steady stream return to their homeland, with scars, tall tales, and a total inability either to settle down into normal society or accept discipline as regular soldiers. They are good fighters, but liable to cause trouble in taverns, when they are not roaming around in dangerous bands. The elect accounts wisely seek to recruit such bands as irregular troops for 2 reasons. The first is to bring these headstrong fighters under some sort of control, and thus prevent brigandage and rebellion. The other reason is that they represent a steady source of expendable troops, often brave, reckless, and hardened to the rigours of campaigning. The polite and diplomatic term for such troops is free companies. There are other terms which are less polite, but more accurate. Again, I just think it's fantastic. It just really held complete, you know, the idea of this being like a living world. It's not just, you know, just sort of this two-dimensional place where, you know, lords just recruit armies and then fight other armies, you know? The idea that all of these people have got a backstory to some extent, you know? The free companies are free companies for very, like, particular reasons. They're not just, you know, an excuse to have some troops that are a bit different to the swordsmen or spearmen or halberds, you know. And I really like that. You know, it just shows that there is a living world outside of these grand battles. So, you know, just to have that much like extra backstory, just from a brief description of, you know, just one unit you can field, I think is great. You know, they've really thought about every aspect of this. So, yeah, I absolutely love free companies, just as a source of, you know, storytelling, basically. So, yeah, absolutely love it. So, another fun bit of sort of additional sort of storytelling, really, is the Pistoliers. Right, so again, it's not just, you know, oh, sometimes you recruit people on horses with guns, right? No, there's a reason for this. So Pistoliers are noble sons who are not yet old or experienced enough to win their spurs as knights. In battle, they outflank the enemy and disrupt its lines with sudden hit-and-run attacks. Being rather young and inexperienced, Pistoliers are inclined to be hot-headed and rather wild, bravely dashing into the jaws of danger where a more experienced warrior might bide his time. The armour and weapons carried by Pistolier are provided by his family. So I just love the idea that, yeah, you got knights on the field, but, you know, they were something before that. And obviously they're going to be nobility, because they're knights, right? And the idea that you still have these inexperienced troops who aren't quite there yet, but still play a part on the battlefield. Again, I really enjoy that. Just basically a load of toffs trying to prove themselves on the back of horses, you know. I think that's really good fun. And obviously, you know, in a world where everything is so dangerous, you're going to make use of these people. So the best thing to do is, yeah, have the, you know, have the noble sons go out there with pistols, and they can help harass the enemy, you know, and also prove themselves. So I think that's really good fun. And obviously, you know, weapon stuff provided by the family, so pretty cheap units, right? So really good for a general, just to be like, yeah, here you go, guys, go prove yourselves, and yeah, see you later. I think that's really good fun. So yeah, another little fun facet there. So later on, I do actually want to talk about all the knightly orders separately, because, yeah, they have, each knightly order's got its own cool backstories and stuff, and, you know, gods they follow, and some don't follow gods at all, and it's all crazy, and really awesome. So I do actually want to do a whole load of videos, one on each knightly order, but I will give a description of the knightly orders in general, because obviously there are knights this game, and they're, you know, troops you can recruit. At the moment, you just get Empire knights, and Reichsguard, and, well, I guess the Demigods, but yeah, they don't really count, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun. So really it's only Reichsguard and Knights of the Blazing Sun that are actual knightly orders in this game. So yeah, I may as well just talk about knights in general, right? So the sons of the Empire's nobility often choose to join one of the select brotherhoods of knightly orders. There are many such brotherhoods throughout the Empire. Some of the smaller orders recruit from the local nobility, such as the Knights of the Blazing Sun, the Knights of the Black Rose, the Knights of the Broken Sword, etc. Some restrict their membership to worshippers of a particular god and are referred to as Templars. Such are the members of the sinister Black Guard of Moor, or the Knights of the Everlasting Light. A knight displays the emblems of his order on his armour and shield, and the style of his armour and dress follows a traditional design. Knights owe their allegiance directly to their lord, the Grand Master of their order. Each order has a very complex hierarchic structure, but almost all of them are governed by an inner circle of knights. These heroic warriors have accomplished a mighty feat of arms, distinguishing themselves and earning the right to ascend to this important position. The knights of the inner circle are the elite of the elite, certainly the best fighting men of all the Empire. Elect counts often call upon the knights of an order to come to arms and fight as part of their army. To add this crack-heavy cavalry to their own army is vital for the counts. This makes the Grand Masters very powerful individuals, because theirs is the final decision whether the order will join the Count's army or not. Often the condition for this help is that the Grand Master himself assumes command of the army. Many elect Counts are only too happy to accept this condition, since it is well known that Grand Masters make formidable leaders. The Reichsguard Knights form the bodyguard of the Emperor. The order was founded during the reign of Wilhelm, the first Emperor of the lineage of the Princes of Altdorf. Devout Templars of Sigmar, Reichsguard Knights swear to give their lives to protect the Emperor, who is the living incarnation of Sigmar. Their Grand Master is the Reichsmarshal of the Empire, commander of all the Empire forces, second only to the Emperor himself. The Knights of the White Wolf are based in the city of Middenheim, where they were founded following a great victory against Chaos outside the city walls. The Knights are all followers of the god Ulrich, who is worshipped throughout the Empire, but most notably in the northern provinces, especially Middenland. The Knights wear mantles of wolf skins over their armour, carry neither shield nor helm, and ride into battle bareheaded to show off their long hair and beards. Their weapon is the mighty Warhammer, which they swing round their heads, knocking enemy horsemen from their saddles and pounding the skulls of foes on foot. The Knights Panther trace their origins to the wars against Araby, when returning crusaders brought back outlandish animals from the east. Some of these knights adopted the panther as their emblem, creating the Order of the Knights Panther. So there, you know, you got a little sort of brief on some of the different knightly orders, and you know, a bit of the hierarchy there. So I think that's a fair bit of flavour. So yeah. So now that I've quashed rebellion and, you know, kind of secured my borders again, and, you know, which now includes Switzerland and the Reikland and Marienburg, which is pretty sweet, I'm going to actually do the next quest battle. So you'll see in a second, Franz will head north and take on the Norsemen. And, yeah, basically earn his right to wield the Reikland Runefang. So I want to talk a bit about the enemies he'll be facing. So, so basically I'm going to start by talking about sort of the Northlands, and it'll get to, you know, sort of the people that live there, which will be the people we'll be facing. So, so the Northlands. Around the realm of chaos, the borderlands of the mortal world form a ring of shadow that surrounds the ultimate darkness within. For this reason, the lands of the north are also known as the Shadowlands, the Umbra Chaotica, or the Chaos Wastes. It is the Chaos Wastes that the fighting is fiercest amongst those who seek the favour of the Dark Gods. The broad region is part of the material world, but it is inevitably tainted by the close proximity to the realm of chaos, which radiates an intense and dangerous energy. This is the warping power that wizards regard as the source of all magic. Lying close to the borders of chaos, the Northlands are unavoidably saturated with these malefic forces. Only as the distance from the pole increases does the influence of chaos weaken. The lands of the north are, for the most part, frozen wastelands stalked by all manner of gruesome monsters and wandering madmen. No crops can survive there, for the ground itself is as hard as iron, and howling winds cut like daggers of purest cold. A network of fjords and mist-shrouded islands reach the coast, and it is here that the Northmen build and tether the longships that with which they terrorise the shores of the known world, which is, you know, some of the ones that are going to turn up in a second, right? In the southernmost lands of Norscan, scattered settlements and coastal villages provide some respite from the cruel elements. Further inland, the pack ice gives way to frozen steppes and eventually open plain, where the horse tribes hunt their prey. The closer a traveller comes to the gaping wound at the top of the world, however, the more inhospitable and surreal the terrain becomes. Jagged peaks and metallic spikes thrust out of the land, like splintered bones, and rivers of lava run backwards through deep fissures in the snow-covered plains. Monoliths raised to the glory of Chaos champions dot the untracked wilderness, their pitted surfaces bearing legends of bloody deeds. Vast skull-topped bastions, wrenched out of the world's crust by the forces of pure change, cast shadows across the snow that dance and flicker as they play out scenes of slaughter and death. Across this impossible and nightmarish landscape stalk those warriors who have given themselves to chaos, roaming the waste in search of glory and unending war. So, yeah, it sounds like just a bit of a crap place to live, right? Yeah, like, no PlayStation. Definitely no PlayStation. Yeah, nothing fun. No hummus. Yeah, you can't find a Waitrose there. Definitely not. So yeah, it's pretty grim. So you might notice things are actually going to get a bit janky. You might not notice at all actually, but basically this battle, I tried recording it like 3 times in DirectX 12, and just it kept crashing my recording software every time I hit stop. So it seemed like everything was fine.
Hear me now,
anyway, speech.
Brave men, brave Reiklanders, hear me! The celestial wizards read the portents true. Norse raiders land on Northland's shores. We have marched many miles, but there is no distance so great that I would not gladly march it to face this, our ultimate foe. I have refused the honor of wielding the blade of our forebears thus far. I was not worthy, but should we survive this day, should we drive the ruinous tribes back across the sea, then, with your blessing, I will pick up the Reikland Runefang and use it to bleed our foes, to carve my way through Sigmar's enemies. Are you with me, men of the Empire? For when the Northmen come, they will attack hard, as their despicable gods demand. We must be ready to push them back, thrust them into the sea, in defense of the Empire!
So that was Karl there. So yeah, sorry if the frame rate is a little bit iffy. I had to do this in DirectX 11 for some reason. I honestly couldn't tell you why. I've never had a problem recording this game, so I don't know what it was. I've got up-to-date drivers and everything, so I honestly couldn't tell you what the deal is there. It's a bit peculiar. But anyway, so let's get into the battle and stuff, right? So anyway, so the men of the North, the men who dwell in the Northlands are, for the most part, barbarous and savage compared to those who live in the settled lands to the south. Though typically larger and more physically powerful, they are not unlike other men, and in times of peace, traders from the north can be found hawking their wares in the markets of cosmopolitan cities such as Marienburg in the west and Wyjin in the east. So I believe Wyjin is either part of Nippon or Cathay. I couldn't tell you for sure off the top of my head. But anyway, yet in other respects they are a race apart, worshipping outlandish gods and living lives that are altogether harsher and more primitive. Most importantly of all, they live within the shadow of the realm of chaos, and such cannot truly escape its power. Even in the civilized southern lands, mutation and disfigurement are commonplace. In the Empire, mutant offspring are abandoned to die, and folk showing even the slightest aberration of form are hunted down and burned at the stake by the dreaded witch hunters. In the far north, such mutations are so common as to be almost universal. Though not always apparent at first glance, most bear some trace of chaos upon their bodies. To the people of the north, these are not curses or disfigurements, but blessings bestowed upon them by the gods. Even the most horrific mutations are seen as irrefutable indication that an individual has been marked by a god, though whether for immortality or oblivion it is impossible to say. The men of the north tend to wear their hair long and cultivate great masses of facial hair. Their skin is tough as leather and windburnt by the fierce caress of the blizzard. They protect themselves from the fury of the elements with furs cut from the backs of wolves, bears, or the nameless beasts that roam the wilderness. Upon their heavily thewed arms, they wear crude jewellery and sport tangled masses of scar tissue. Many Northmen bear grisly tokens and tattoos that they believe will keep them safe from harm or attract the gaze of the gods. They are usually correct, but those who live in the threshold of the realm of chaos are right to be superstitious. The northern tribes are universally bloodthirsty, barbaric and fierce. They are warrior peoples used to battling amongst themselves, against the softer civilized men of the south, and against the older races that have built their empires across the globe. War is their natural state, and they wage it with neither prejudice nor malice, rejoicing in battle and strength at arms, honouring the brave of both sides and despising cowards. When chaos is ascendant, the men of the north are willing to put aside their rivalries and disputes. As word spreads of a coming conflict, the tribes of the Chaos Waste gather together under the command of a champion of chaos, who they will follow to the corners of the world in the name of conquest. To the Northmen, there is no greater honour than to fight and perish in the armies of the immortals. So, I was actually reading from that was the 7th edition Warriors of Chaos battlebook, if you're interested. Now though, coming back to the 6th edition Empire one to talk about the Runefangs, which is why we're here, fighting these Northmen. That because, Franz is a good emperor, doesn't want, any of his realms being attacked by, crazy marauders. But still, he's doing this for the Reikland Runefang, right? So, yeah, so I'll talk about the Runefangs. So, after the bloody battle of Blackfire Pass, where the power of the Orcs was broken for 1,000 years, this is when Sigmar defeated them. So, year -1, I think. So anyway, where the power of the Orcs was broken for 1,000 years, King Kurgan Ironbeard showed his gratitude to Sigmar by presenting a gift of magic to the newly fledged empire. A dwarf will always repay a favour, just as he will never forget a grudge. And Sigmar's warriors had been instrumental in defeating the Greenskin hordes. Thus the king set to work Alaric the Mad, greatest of the living runesmiths, ordering him to make 12 great rune swords, one for each of the mighty chieftains of men who commanded Sigmar's armies. And I find that kind of cool actually, because dwarves don't use swords. So the idea of them being like, hey, you weird people, you use swords, but we're going to make you the best goddamn swords, I just think is, kind of cool, because that's very unique for, for them to make swords at all. So I think that shows a lot of respect that isn't really mentioned. It's not really mentioned that anywhere, that, that's significant. But to me, I think it is. So anyway, sorry, I'll carry on, I get distracted. So it is the law of runes which entraps and binds the winds of magic into the metal, and makes the dwarves unrivaled smiths. These magical weapons, armour and talismans are prized even above the works of the great elven smiths. Only the dwarves know the true secrets of the runecraft, and they guard their knowledge jealously. Now this skill was harnessed to make blades of unsurpassed power for Sigmar's generals. For many years Alaric toiled, and his beard grew long. Many years even for a dwarf, and more than a lifetime of a man. When Alaric finally emerged from his secret forges beneath the mountains, Sigmar had long since passed eastward to face whatever fate overtook him. And the chieftains who fought for him in the beginning were long dead. The Runefangs were presented to the ruling Emperor Aisriyths, who divided them between the elect accounts. Each blade was a mighty weapon in its own right, making the wielder all but invincible on the battlefield. It is also become a symbol of the authority and prestige of the elect account who wielded it. Many years have passed and the Empire has fought many wars and withstood countless invasions, but the Runefangs have survived through the ages. 10 are in the hands of elect accounts themselves, while the Runefangs of Solund and Drakwold now rest in the Imperial army of Altdorf, brought forth only during times of strife and war. So I think I mentioned in the Whistleland video, Solund used to be, you know, a province down there, but got completely destroyed by, I think it was Gorbad Ironclaw, was it? Sounds about right, top of my head. Anyway, so that's gone. Also, the Drakwold was another province that is partly in, I think, the Westerland and mostly in Midland, though. It's become mostly Midland because it is basically the Drakwold forest, which is, you know, still there and full of beastmen and horrors. But anyway, so yeah, those elect accounts don't exist anymore. So those swords are in other people's hands. One of them is actually the Reichsmarschall has one. So that's fun. So, you know, spoke about him in, I think, the first episode. Or second. Or, yeah, I don't know. Either way, I've spoken about him before. But he's got one of the Runefangs, so that's cool. So, many times in the past, Runefangs have been lost to the enemy, only to be later recovered. The most famous of these tales is the legend of the Solund Sword. It was taken by, Gorbad Ironclaw, I remember. The greatest of all orc warlords ever to tread the soil of the old world. The ravages of this dreaded green-skinned despot devastated Solund to such an extent that it has never recovered. The Count of Solund was slain by Gorbad and the Runefang taken from his corpse. It was only after many years that an expedition of dwarves and men recovered the revered blade from a Chimera's lair beneath the mountains of the world's edge. Today the Runefangs remain, as they always have been, symbols of the glory of the Empire and magical weapons of terrifying power. So to me, I'm not really sure why, you know, Karl Franz feels the need to sort of, you know, prove that he's worth sort of wielding the Runefang, because he would have been elect account for ages before he became Emperor, and it's a sign of an elect account, not an Emperor. But I do understand that, you know, this is a game, and they want to have cool quest battles to get all the different, you know, bits of equipment and stuff. So, you know, I get that, but I think it doesn't seem very canon, because, you know, he should be comfortable wielding the Runefang. It's been his for a long time. So, you know, whatever, right? So now that we're, you know, getting quite close to defeating the, you know, the terrible Northmen, I think it's good to get a bit of a blurb for some of the, you know, some of the different sort of Northman factions, you know, the different tribes basically. So here again, reading from the 7th edition Warriors of Chaos book, the battle book, you know, for the tabletop, not the role-playing game. And so yeah, the tribes of Chaos. So the Shadowlands that lie about the realm of Chaos are home to many different tribes of men. For if one avoids the perimeter of the realm of Chaos, it is possible to eke out a life in the wastelands. However, this borderland is not of fixed extent or uniform nature. The further from the pole, the weaker the radiant energy of Chaos, but that energy is constantly waxing and waning, spreading the power of Chaos southwards or temporarily loosening its grip. So it is that many Northmen are nomadic, making their camp where they may and moving on whenever the dark energies of the land flow strong. Northmen have little concept of nationality or allegiance beyond their immediate family and tribe. They recognise no border other than the horizon ahead of them, and will fight to the death for the slightest of reasons. Nonetheless, so vast is the wasteland that surrounds the realm of Chaos that several distinct clans and groups of tribes inhabit it, each with their own customs and beliefs. To the immediate north of the old world live the Norscan tribes, fierce barbarians, hard-bitten and warlike. Their mountainous land is haunted by all manner of twisted beasts, notably trolls, giants, and pallid things that live under the mountains. They are warriors for the sea as well as the land, journeying far to the south and west in sturdily built longships. The Norse have pale skin after the manner of men of the Empire. They are generally held to be especially tall and strong, and many have red or hair. Those that live the greatest distance from the realm of chaos are the least favoured of their gods, and the most likely to be seen openly in more civilized lands as a result. To the east of Norscan lies the southern arm of the frozen sea, and east of that the northern wastes, stretching many thousands of miles to the distant ocean. This cold and barren extension of the great northern steppes is home to fierce nomadic peoples, of whom the greatest and most feared are the Kurgan to the west, and the horse nomads of the Hung to the east. So that's the Hung are basically the Huns, I believe. That's the sort of, you know, real world analogue there. These races are themselves divided into many interwarring tribes, some even more barbarous and bloodthirsty than others. The Kurgan are a raven-haired, dark-skinned and powerfully built race, quite unlike old worlders in appearance. The tribes of the Kurgan, several hundred in number, are said to be equally at home on foot or on horseback. When the armies of chaos gather to invade the old world, it is the Kurgan that comprise the bulk, for they are a numerous people compared to the other tribes, and they feel the call to battle in their blood. Their domain extends far to the east and to the south beyond the shadow of chaos. It is the warriors of the northernmost Kurgan tribes that are the fiercest and most likely to bear the unnatural gifts of their gods. So, yeah, I think I get the feeling that the Kurgan were probably going to be like a bigger race at some point, because I get the feeling like Warhammer was never truly finished, so they never did Nippon or Araby or Cathay. You know, there's a load of sort of gaps in it, but I get the feeling that Kurgan were going to be like a sort of an evil cavalry army, and they never got around to doing it properly, you know. But you know, maybe not. Maybe they're just more Chaos Marauders, and who cares? But yeah, I do get the feeling that they're supposed to be a bit more, you know, impressive than that. So yeah, whatever. So now, yeah, so I've got the Runefang now. So that's quite a decisive win, I think. So you may have noticed about, I don't know, 20 seconds ago, I was upgrading Karl Franz's skills. I decided to go for some of the more, well, for the bottom ones, right? You know, sort of fervent and things like that. Because I want to make him more sort of statesman-like, and I think that's better represented in that tree than the others. So I'm trying to flesh him out more. Bit of RP there. But yeah, so I couldn't tell you what's in the next episode because I haven't recorded it yet. Obviously I do the audio after I do the, you know, actually record the campaign thing. This is all voiceover work. So, but yeah, I haven't done that bit of the campaign yet. So it'll be a surprise for both of us. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please comment, like, and subscribe. It all helps my channel out, and you know, it gives you a say in what I do. So we've run out of video there, but never mind. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed it, please do comment. You know, it really helps me sort of guide this in a good direction. So yeah, have a good one, guys.